Welcome to our historical inquiry into one of history's most enigmatic and controversial figures, Vlad III Draculesti, also known as Vlad the Impaler. His name resonates throughout history not just as a ruler of Wallachia, but as the inspiration behind one of the most enduring characters in Gothic literature, Count Dracula. Welcome to the Bird's Eye Report, where in today's video we delve deep into the life of Vlad III the Impaler, tracing his journey from a noble birthright in the tumultuous region of 15th century Eastern Europe to his notorious reign that will leave behind an indelible mark on both his homeland and the wider world. We seek to uncover the man behind the myth, exploring the political machinations and the brutal warfare tactics that characterized his rule, and how these elements contributed to his fearsome reputation. Let's travel back to the 15th century, to a region steeped in conflict and a time where empires vied for dominance. Wallachia, a historical and geographical region of Romania, was caught in a precarious position between two behemoths of the age, the Christian kingdoms of Europe, most notably Hungary, and the ever-expanding Ottoman Empire. Wallachia during Vlad III's lifetime was a vassal to the Ottoman Empire, yet it was also a trade route and buffer zone coveted by the Kingdom of Hungary. The geopolitical significance of Wallachia cannot be overstated. It was the battleground for cultural, religious, and military clashes that would shape the course of Eastern European history. The political landscape of the time was fraught with peril and power struggles. The reigning boyars of Wallachia, which were the noble class, were engaged in constant political intrigue, often switching allegiances between powerful neighbors for their gain. It was a period marked by swift and brutal changes in leadership, with princes often ascending to the throne through treachery or external support, rather than hereditary succession. In the words of the Byzantine historian Laonikos Kakokondiles, Wallachia has a plain on one side flanked by the river Danube, and on the other it is blocked by very high mountains. The land is rich and well populated, but it does not have a single ruler, rather many powerful men, each ruling over his own territory. It is within this volatile environment that Vlad III would emerge. His father Vlad II Dracula was a member of the Order of the Dragon, sworn to defend Christendom against the Ottoman Empire. The name Dracula, which was derived from the order, was indicative of the commitment to this cause, a legacy that Vlad III would inherit and carry forth with fervor that would cement his place in history. The strategic importance of Wallachia was underscored by the frequent conflicts that occurred within and around its borders. The struggle against the Ottoman Turks was not merely territorial, but was also a defense of the Christian faith against the encroaching Islamic power. This backdrop of religions and cultural conflict would serve to both justify and vilify Vlad III's actions in the years to come. As we examine this period, we must understand that the history of Wallachia is a web of war, diplomacy, and survival. The fate of its people and its rulers was inexorably linked to the ebb and flow of power among Europe's great dynasties and the relentless ambition of the Ottoman sultans. Vlad III, son of Vlad II, entered a world embroiled in the throes of political upheaval and conflict. Born in 1931 in the fortress of Sighisoara, his early life was marked by the tempest of dynastic struggle and the ominous threat of Ottoman expansion. Vlad II, his father, was inducted into the Order of the Dragon, a chivalric order dedicated to the defense of Christianity, which bestowed upon his family the name Dracula, the Dragon. His father's role was not merely titular either. It signified a deep entrenchment in the political and military strife that characterized the era. The significance of his lineage is evident once again in the words of Kakokondiles, who described Vlad II's induction into the Order of the Dragon as a pivotal moment, highlighting the weight of responsibility and expectation placed upon the family to uphold the Christian defense against the Ottomans. Vlad III's childhood was abruptly upended though when he and his younger brother Radu were given as hostages to the Ottoman Sultan Murad II, a common practice meant to secure the loyalty of subjugated leaders, basically securing his father's loyalty. It was within the opulent yet imprisoning walls of the Ottoman court that Vlad would spend his formative years. This experience was crucial in forging his outlook on power and sovereignty. In his adolescence, he witnessed firsthand the might of the Ottoman military and the inner workings of a vast empire. The psychological impact of this period on Vlad is crucial to understanding his later actions. Chroniclers such as Michael Beheim in his work The Story of a Bloodthirsty Madman called Dracula of Wallachia depict a young Vlad as being both repulsed and fascinated by the Ottomans, absorbing the lessons of power, which he would later employ with ruthless efficiency. Despite the apparent subjugation, Vlad's time in captivity was not devoid of education or martial training. He would have been instructed in warfare, statecraft, and the languages of the court, skills that were essential for a noble of his standing. However, the harsh treatment and the indignity of his situation sowed seeds of resentment and a fierce desire for retribution and independence. It is through this complex prison of captive and noble, observer and victim that we must view the young Vlad. His eventual release and return to Wallachia was not simply a homecoming, but a return with a hardened resolve to reclaim autonomy for his homeland and a personal vendetta against those he perceived as enemies to his rule and to his people. Upon his return to Wallachia, Vlad found a realm under the control of the boyars, whose shifting loyalties had often led to political instability and turmoil. His father had been assassinated, and his older brother Mircea had been blinded and buried alive by rival Wallachian nobles, an act of brutality that underscored the perilous nature of Wallachian politics. The path to the throne was steeped in blood and betrayal, but Vlad was determined to reclaim the leadership that was his by birthright. His first brief reign in 1448 lasted merely a few months, as the boyars, with Hungarian backing, quickly deposed him. Yet Vlad would not be deterred. He retreated, bided his time, and gathered support. A passage from the Chronicle of the Council of Constance captures the essence of this turbulent time. In Wallachia, there is never a lack of armed men. Neither is there a lack of them who wish to become prince. In 1456, Vlad ascended to the throne for the second time, now with Hungarian support. This ascent marked the beginning of what would be his primary reign. He wasted no time in addressing the internal strife that plagued his principality. One of his first actions was to convene a meeting of the Wallachian boyars. He inquired about the fate of his father and brother, and upon confirming the boyars' betrayal, he had many of them executed. This event is vividly described once again by Byzantine historian Calcocondyles. He impaled all the great ones that he held responsible for the overthrow of his father and the killing of his older brother. This act of retribution was not merely punitive, it was a calculated move to consolidate his power and instill a sense of fear among those who would oppose him. Vlad understood the brutal politics of the time, and his actions reflected a Machiavellian approach to rulership. It was better to be feared than loved, if one could not be both. Vlad's reign was characterized by strict administrative reforms aimed at stabilizing the economy and strengthening the military. He curtailed the power of the boyars, replacing them with loyalists, thus undermining the traditional feudal structure that had led to incessant conflicts. His fiscal policies were equally assertive, as he aimed to build a treasury that could support a sovereign and independent Wallachia. He also sought to centralize power, fortify his borders, and enhance the authority of the central government. The prince's reputation for strict justice and harsh punishment began to grow. He was determined to establish order and justice through an iron-willed enforcement of the law. These measures, while draconian, did bring a measure of stability to a land that had been rife with corruption and disorder. Vlad III's second reign was undoubtedly the most significant period of his life, marking his transformation from a deposed nobleman to a sovereign ruler with an unyielding grip on his principality. Once settled in power, Vlad III faced the monumental task of defending Wallachia against his powerful adversaries, mainly the Ottoman Empire. His military campaigns were driven by a blend of strategic acumen and punitive zeal that has become the subject of much historical scrutiny and legend. Vlad's approach to warfare was unorthodox and merciless, particularly in his legendary resistance against the Ottoman forces. His staunch opposition is captured in one of the most badass and simultaneously bone-chilling letters that I have ever read. A letter he wrote in 1462 to Matthias Corvinus, the King of Hungary, after his most famous battle, the night attack at Târgoviște. In the letter, he stated the following: "We have killed peasants, men and women, old and young, 23,884 Turks and Bulgarians, without counting those whom we burned in homes, or the Turks whose heads were cut by our soldiers. Thus, your highness, you must know that I have broken the peace." His most infamous tactic, impalement, became a hallmark of his rule and the source of his epithet. The psychological impact of this method on his enemies was profound. It was a statement of defiance and a deterrent to those who would challenge his sovereignty. The gruesome details of this practice were chronicled by many historians, who provided graphic descriptions of the stakes and the horrific use. Despite his focus on cruelty, it is important to note that Vlad's tactics were not solely born of sadism. They were a strategic response to the overwhelming military pressure from the Ottomans. His guerrilla warfare tactics, night raids, and scorched earth policies were effective in destabilizing a technologically and numerically superior foe. His most notable campaign, the night attack at Târgoviște in 1462, exemplified his military cunning, where he aimed to assassinate Sultan Mehmed II, almost succeeding, but still creating turmoil within the Ottoman ranks. Vlad's reign was also characterized by an ambitious building program, including the fortification of the strategic stronghold of Poinari Castle, which served as a personal refuge and military garrison. It was during this period that he strengthened the administrative capabilities of his principality, seeking to create a bulwark against external aggression and internal decay. Moreover, Vlad's military expeditions served a dual purpose. They were defensive as well as punitive expeditions against the Transylvanian Saxons, who had supported his rivals and had betrayed Wallachian interests. He was known to enforce severe punishment on the Saxon towns of Brasov and Sibiu. seeing their merchants as underwhelming Wallachian autonomy by supporting his political enemies. Vlad III's reign was a crucible of conflict, a period where his actions, often deemed draconian, were in his view necessary to preserve the autonomy and integrity of his realm. His campaigns, though brutal, were not indiscriminate. They were targeted at those who threatened the sovereignty of Wallachia or who had betrayed its interests. Vlad III's legacy is one shrouded in both awe and horror, a duality that has challenged historians seeking to disentangle the man from the myth. To understand Vlad the Impaler, we must scrutinize the socio-political context of his reign and the sources that have shaped our perception of him. The moniker the Impaler is undeniably tied to Vlad's favorite method of punishment, and while modern sensibilities recoil at such brutality, a contemporary examination by historians like Raymond T. McNally considers these acts within the broader scope of 15th century warfare and governance. As McNally suggests, impalement, while extreme, was not an anomaly in an era accustomed to public executions and judicial torture as means of maintaining sovereign authority and deterring crime. Furthermore, the image of Vlad as a bloodthirsty tyrant is partly a construct of the political propaganda of his time. The proliferation of pamphlets, particularly in the German-speaking lands, served as sensationalized accounts of Vlad's cruelty. These woodcut pamphlets, while reflecting some truth, often exaggerated or invented atrocities for the purpose of moral edification or entertainment, sort of like getting cancelled on Twitter today. A critical analysis of these documents by scholars reveals the medieval practice of infamy literature, where political figures were depicted as monstrous as a form of character assassination. The historical Vlad was a product of his time and circumstances, a ruler who was both cruel and just, employing terror as a weapon against his enemies, but also enforcing strict moral codes within his domain. The accounts by Russian chroniclers present a different perspective, often depicting Vlad as a strong and just ruler, an aspect seldom highlighted in Western narratives. For instance, a Russian chronicler of the time noted he ruled his country with justice and took great care of the country's needs. His rule, while undoubtedly autocratic, also saw measures that aimed at increasing the welfare of the common people, such as promoting agriculture, protecting the peasants from the boyar exploitation, and enhancing trade by creating new market towns and repairing roads and bridges. These efforts, although overshadowed by his infamous cruelty, also form an essential part of his legacy. The complex figure of Vlad the Impaler thus emerges as one shaped by the necessities of his political environment, his personal experiences, and the demands of governance in a period fraught with danger and betrayal. The image of Vlad as a ruler is multifaceted. He was neither the one-dimensional fiend of folklore nor the purely patriotic defender of Wallachian independence. The decline of Vlad the Impaler was as dramatic as his rise. His fall from power was not the result of a single event, but a sequence of military, political, and personal misfortunes that eroded his reign. In 1462, Vlad launched a campaign against the Ottoman Empire, which was initially successful. However, it culminated in a strategic retreat from Targoviste and a withdrawal to his stronghold at Poenari Castle. This campaign is documented in a letter sent by Vlad to the burghers of Brasov, in which he writes, "I have broken the peace with Sultan Mehmed II, who raises his cross against Christ's followers and suppresses the law of Roman emperors." His resistance against the Ottomans was valorous, but ultimately unsustainable. Following Vlad's retreat, his brother Radu, favored by the Ottomans and viewed as more amenable to their influence, began to gain support among the Wallachian nobility. The political tide turned, and many of Vlad's supporters, seeing the futility of resisting the Ottoman forces, defected to Radu's side. This period is once again vividly captured by Colcocondiles, who noted, "Radu being more agreeable to the boyars and to the entire country, they accepted him as their ruler." Vlad was eventually captured by Matthias Corvinus, who had previously been his ally. The motivations behind this capture are still debated by historians, but evidence suggests that Corvinus was influenced by political convenience and possibly by forged letters, reportedly by Vlad, indicating an intention to ally with the Ottomans. Vlad's imprisonment lasted for 12 years, and during this time, the narrative of his cruelty began to be embellished and spread throughout Europe. After 12 years, Vlad was released. The exact circumstances of Vlad's release are unclear, but it is believed that his strategic value against the Ottomans was recognized once more, leading to his eventual release and marriage into a Hungarian noble family. His final attempt to reclaim Wallachia's throne in 1476 was brief. He managed to seize power for a short time before being killed in battle. His death was noted once again by the chronicler Colcocondiles. Dracula, the voivode of Wallachia, was overcome by the Turks and killed. The aftermath of Vlad's death was murky, with various accounts of his burial ranging from the island of Snagov to the monastery of Komana. The legacy of his violent end was, in many ways, a reflection of the volatility of his life and rule. Vlad III's fall from power and his death serve as a poignant coda to the life of a leader who navigated a world of shifting alliances and relentless power struggles. His legacy, marred by the cruelty of his methods, but also marked by his resilience and commitment to his principality's sovereignty, presents a paradox that continues to fascinate and horrify the world. The death of Vlad III did not signal the end of his story. Instead, it marked the beginning of a posthumous myth-making process that would extend far beyond the borders of Wallachia and the pages of history. The legacy of Vlad the Impaler is a study in contrast between the historical figure and the legendary persona, between national hero and notorious villain. In the wake of his death, Vlad's image was subject to the vicissitudes of political agendas and cultural narratives. In Romania and other parts of Eastern Europe, he is often hailed as a hero, a defender of the Wallachian people and their autonomy. The Romanian scholar Nicolae Iorga remarked, "Without a doubt, he was a great patriot who accomplished deeds of an unheard of courage for the benefit of his countrymen." Yet, in Western Europe, the printing press ensured that the more lurid tales of his cruelty would endure in the popular imagination. The pamphlets that depicted his sadistic acts were a part of a genre known as the Dracula literature, sensational stories that were consumed with a mix of horror and fascination. These accounts were tinged with political motivation, intending to demonize a ruler who had defied the powers of the time. It was this image of Vlad the Impaler that captured the imagination of Bram Stoker, an Irish author who would forever change the way the world viewed Vlad. In his seminal work Dracula, published in 1897, Stoker took the historical figure of Vlad III and transformed him into a fictional vampire count. While Stoker's Dracula was only loosely based on Vlad the Impaler, sharing his name and some elements of his background, the novel created a lasting association between the two. Stoker's research into the historical Dracula is evidenced in his notes, where he writes, "In the records are such words as Dracula and Dracula, Wallachian history, for the Dracula was a great and noble warrior." However, the supernatural elements of the character were purely a product of Stoker's creative imagination, influenced by the folklore and myths of Eastern Europe. The cultural impact of Stoker's novel was profound, spanning countless adaptations and interpretations across various media. The figure of Count Dracula became an icon of horror, a symbol of fear of the unknown and the darkness that lurks within humanity. Yet, this portrayal is a far cry from the historical voivode of Wallachia, who fought for his country's independence and enacted laws to protect and uplift his people. The dichotomy between the historical Vlad the Impaler and the fictional Count Dracula invites reflection on how history is remembered and mythologized. It also serves as a reminder of the power of literature and art to shape perceptions across time and space. As we conclude our exploration of Vlad the Impaler, we're left with a complex tapestry woven from the threads of history, legend, and literary invention. A tapestry that challenges us to seek the truth behind the myth and appreciate the multifaceted nature of historical figures. As we draw the curtains on the life and legacy of Vlad, it is imperative to reflect on the enduring enigma of his persona. The historical Vlad was a man of his time, whose actions must be viewed through the lens of the socio-political situation of 15th century Eastern Europe, a time rife with conflict where the preservation of sovereignty was often paid for in blood. The Voivode of Wallachia is remembered for his iron-fisted rule, his unyielding stance against the Ottoman encroachment, and the draconian methods he employed to consolidate his power. While his reign was undoubtedly marked by episodes of extreme brutality, it also encompassed efforts to administer justice and protect Wallachia from external and internal turmoil. It is through this duality that his figure has been revered and reviled, celebrated as a national hero and condemned as a figure of medieval terror. The transition from a historical prince to a legendary figure of horror is a testament to the complex interplay between history and myth, fact and fiction. Stoker's Dracula serves as a cultural artifact that reflects the fascination and fear of the era in which it was created, projecting the dark shadow of Vlad the Impaler into the realm of the supernatural. This fictional reimagining has, in many ways, eclipsed the man himself, creating a legacy that transcends the historical record. In contemplating Vlad's life, one is often compelled to consider the broader question of how history is recorded and remembered. His story is a reminder of the potency of narrative and the way in which tales are woven to suit the needs of their tellers. The figure of Vlad the Impaler serves as a canvas upon which various images have been painted, each reflecting the mores and fears of their time. As historians and scholars continue to sift through the layers of legend to reveal the man beneath, it is likely that the fascination with Vlad III will persist. History invites us to consider the multifaceted nature of leadership, the harsh realities of medieval politics, and the enduring power of storytelling. In the end, Vlad remains a figure shrouded in a mystery, a historical enigma that continues to captivate the imagination and provoke discussion. His life, his reign, and his legacy are reflective of the immutable complexities of history, a narrative forever suspended between the annals of fact and the whispers of legend. And that's about it for the life and legacy of Vlad the Impaler. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. A really fascinating figure here, and you know, I've heard of him just like you guys have heard, but you know, after doing research and after reading, well, what I just told you, I think he is, well, much more fascinating than I previously thought. But yeah, definitely let me know in the comments below what you think about Vlad the Impaler, and of course what you thought of this video. And as always, let me know if you want to see more content like this. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like. It really helps out a lot, and it lets me know that you guys liked it. And if you want to see more content like this, definitely make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of them. Goodbye.